and Europe couldn't travel because of the ash cloud. Well, one man who will know is Eoghan Corry, travel expert and editor of Travel Extra, and he joins us now. Good morning, Eoghan.
Good morning, Brian.
Well, are people going to be stuck all over Europe this Christmas?
No, it's not going to happen. This has been spewing the Fagradalsfjall. Can you pronounce that, Brian?
Try that for me again.
Fagradalsfjall.
Fagradalsfjall.
The one in 2010 is Eyjafjallajökull Lokul.
Well, I'll leave that one in your capable hands.
It was the most mispronounced word on radio in 2010. In fact, anybody who wants to get a very, very comic turn on it, there's an Irish ballad singer who wrote a song called Big Black Smoke about it, called Tom Toohey. You'll find him on the internet, and it gives a description of what happened in 2010. This time around, there was a little bit of disruption. One or two flights cancelled because the airport is only 12 kilometres away from Fagradalsfjall volcano. But it's delays. But once it was clear that lava wasn't spewing in the direction of the airport, the flights resumed. Very different. The Eyjafjallajökull eruption put an awful lot of ash into the sky. People weren't sure how aviation would react to it, and we probably overreacted in retrospect. It's 13 years ago now. 100,000 flights cancelled, and flights grounded, including Ireland, most of Western Europe. Oddly enough, the Keflavik airport, which was just in the right direction from the Eyjafjallajökull eruption, still flew. So the only airport that was open through most was the one in Iceland itself. This time round, we're not going to see flights cancelled. What is of more concern is local villages. And there's a very popular tourist attraction called the Blue Lagoon, which any of the listeners who've been to Iceland, it's one of the 2 or 3 major things that you see when you go in there. It's very near the airport, it's very near Reykjavik, and it's a hot spring that people use to immerse themselves in. It is very close to the volcano. It will be closed for a while.
And is there a change in technology, or is it simply that it's a different eruption this time around?
Different kind of eruption. What happened with Eyjafjallajökull would not have happened very much. There are volcanic eruptions around the world. Indonesia had one a little bit earlier this year that disrupted flights. But it's really not about the size of the eruption, the scale of the eruption. It's about the amount of ash that goes into the air and what that does to an aircraft engine. We had an incident about 10 years before 2010 where a British Airways flight managed to get through with all its 4 engines damaged by a smoke cloud. And I think that the sort of the legend of that and the story of that caused a little bit of overreaction. There was some sort of conflict between the Icelandic meteorological people and a volcano unit based in London. In retrospect, everybody says we were erred on the side of caution. Not the wrong thing to do in the aviation terms, but that's what happened then. I've actually flown very close to an erupting volcano on the Rwanda-DR Congo border about 8 years ago, and it was quite interesting that it didn't affect flights at all. It depends on the scale, the style, the way the eruption and the cause of the eruption. In the Eyjafjallajökull case, there was a melting glacier on the mountain as well, and that really probably caused most of what shut down the flight patterns of Europe.
Okay, so while people may not be rushing to book flights to head to Iceland at the moment, is it somewhere that you would recommend that people, if they had the opportunity, go and visit?
Oh, very highly. It's beautiful scenery. There's a golden. Most countries have a sort of gallery of attractions that you go in for a first-time visitor. In Ireland, the Cliffs of Moher would count in that, the Guinness Storehouse would count in that. But there's 2 beautiful waterfalls, Golden Fuss, and people go to the Blue Lagoon and immerse themselves in the hot springs there. And then there's a couple of particularly beautiful black basalt beaches and places like that. It's a wonderful experience. It's a little bit pricey, but we have very, very good air connections with airlines like Clay, which has a service from Dublin. And it's also quite an interesting stopover option for a fairly cheap flight. One of the cheapest flights to get to the USA is with Icelandic Airlines transitioning to Keflavik, and you get 48 hours stopover on the way. A lot of people do that. And of course, some of the Irish tour groups, Travel Department would be a very good example, do splendid tours through the country. The north of the country doesn't get visited as much because the breaks in Iceland tend to be short, 2-3 days. But it's certainly worth looking up there. And there's a very big Irish connection. The DNA of a lot of Icelandic people comes from a female Irish line. Of course, they were willing tourists who went over with the Vikings in the Viking times, we think, to Iceland. But there's a shrine, there are saints, the Irish saints have their shrines, including an entire day dedicated to St. Patrick. And of course, Christianity went to Iceland from the Irish. So we are two islands in the Atlantic. It's very, very ancient connections, and I do feel it's a great place to visit.
Well, it sounds absolutely fantastic.